So we're going to start on our blocks. So I do recommend a block just to have it. You can always use a large book as well. This is just to get a little bit deeper into the chest in this case, but you can by all means do this without the block. But we're going to try. So we're going to place it lengthways toward the back of the mat, leaving enough space for your head to melt out the back. Then we're going to lie back onto our block, literally hugging the shoulder blades around the block, and then we're going to rest our head onto the ground behind. Now if the head doesn't get there comfortably, if the neck feels a little bit stressed out, we're going to reach for our second block or a pillow or whatever little prop you want to use, and we're going to rest our head onto that. So just to take any strain out of the neck. Okay? So you might feel you need it, if not, connecting the head. So just making sure the head is connected to something. Then we're either going to bring our arms out in line with the shoulders. We can go into cactus arms if we feel already quite open, making sure we're hugging those shoulder blades around the block. If the hands are kind of floating out here, just bring them a little bit, a little bit closer toward the body until they are actually rested on the ground. We're going to bring the soles of the feet together, allowing the knees drop out to the sides, coming into a nice little gentle hip opener. We're going to press the soles of the feet together, so we're really allowing those knees drop out, and then we're going to try to focus on where our breath is at. So just noticing where it's at first. So is it a long breath? Is it a short breath? Is it getting into our belly? Is it caught up in our chest? Is it restricted? Is it smooth? So just noticing where your own breath is at here. And on our next exhale, we're going to really press all that air, all that stale air and energy out of the body, really contracting the tummy muscles to really squeeze it out, and then really filling the full length of the body up with that lovely fresh breath. So again, not thinking too much about where that breath's going for the first few breaths, just really squeezing it out, and then allowing all that fresh air, fresh energy flow back in. On our next inhale, we're going to try to breathe just through the nose if we can. So we're going to draw that breath deep into the belly, right up into the rib cage, right up into the chest, and then just gently sighing it out through the lips of the exhale. Just a few more like that to your own breath. Just noticing the chest rising, the shoulder blades melting, the chest opening. Maybe bringing the soles of the feet a little bit closer toward the body, getting a little bit deeper into the hips here. And your next breath, seeing if you can hold it for a couple of breaths extra. And then release. And again, just allowing the body maintain a little bit of control on that breath, but trying to use that breath to access every last little corner of the body. So as athletes, we will be looking a lot at our breathing. Okay, so what we tend to do, myself included, especially when we're under pressure, all our breath goes into our chest, and we get tighter and tighter and tighter and more contracted. And then we're restricting all that lovely oxygen flowing around the body. We're rolling into our chest, we're weakening our back muscles. So we're going to try and create a little bit more space in the chest by walking those shoulder blades together, really rolling the shoulders back and engaging that belly breath. So we're drawing that breath deep into the belly, so eventually it will get to the chest. From here we're going to bring a little bit of movement. So we're going to inhale, draw the arms back overhead, touching the fingertips together, and as we exhale, we're going to draw the arms right back down by the sides. So making lovely kind of half snow angels. Inhale, reaching back. Exhale, drawing the hands back by the body. If there's anything in your way, take the time to move it out of the way so we can make those circles, those half circles, as smooth as possible. And again, just noticing if maybe the hands start to lift off the ground as you draw them back together overhead. And that can just signify a little bit of tightness in the shoulders or into the chest. And maybe it's a little bit more restricted on one side than the other. So you're just noticing these little restrictions is good, so that we're noticing what's happening within the body. But then just use the movement with each breath, trying to create a little bit more smoothness, make the circles a little bit larger. Try to maintain contact with the fingertips and the ground for as long as possible. And again, all the time working with that breath as we inhale, drawing the hands back together overhead, reaching through the fingertips. And as we exhale, drawing the arms back down by the sides. So again, you could do this for as long as, particularly if you are quite tight into the chest and shoulders. This is a lovely, gentle mobilizer. And again, you're working into that chest opener, you're working into the hips. So the hips should start to feel it a little bit here as well. And again, you do not need the block for this. You can always take the block out or not have the block at all and just work into that lovely mobilizer. This is just bringing a little bit more openness into the chest. Next inhale, we're going to draw the knees together, slowly rolling off the block, just to remove it out of the way. And then just making sure our towel or our strap is close by. We're going to hug that right knee in, extending the left leg fully out, pressing away through that left heel. And then as we exhale, we're going to start into a nice little mobilizer into that right hip. So we can keep the right hand touching that right leg, or we can take it out all together out of the equation. So it's just there as a little guide. We don't want to be restricted by the length of that arm, so maybe taking it away all together. And we're extending through the leg, we're drawing the leg across the body into the chest and outwards. We're trying to make that movement as full and as smooth as we can. So just noticing where it does feel a little bit niggly, noticing the clicks and pops. And again, those clicks and pops are okay once they're not accompanied by pain. Okay, so there's a lot of stuff going on in our joints, little tendons rubbing over each other, little air pockets. And then we're going to reverse it in the other direction. So again, use the movement to get a little stretch into the glute, a little extension into the hamstring, a little openness into the hips. And again, this is a lovely little warmer upper into the hips, as well as after a session or at the end of the day, and just to really knead out any of those little niggles within that hip. So again, a lot of our injuries as athletes stem from tightness in the hips and also instabilities in the hips. So not only do we want to develop mobility and movement, we also want to develop strength and stability. So it's a kind of a dual process. Lovely. And then we can hug that right knee in toward the chest. We keep the left hand on the left hip bone just to keep that left side grounded. And we're going to exhale, draw that right knee outside the line of the body. We're still pressing away through that left heel, so that left leg is still active. Every exhale, we're drawing the hip open a little bit more. So we're working into a nice deep hip flexor stretch, so right into our psoas muscle. So that's a unique muscle in that it has attachments both in the lower body and into the upper body, so it traverses our hip complex. So therefore, when it is tight, it tends to cause a lot of issues. So it's not just focusing on the lower or the upper body, it's the whole thing. So if we can loosen up into this, and this is one of the better stretches for that. It's quite hard to access because it lies quite deep. Again, every exhale, getting a little bit deeper. Every inhale, again, we're still opening the chest, connecting the back to the ground. We're going to inhale back to center. We're going to place the left hand on the shin, extending right arm out in line with the shoulder, palm facing down. And as we exhale, shifting the hips a little bit to the right, and then allowing that leg drop over to the left. So just that little shift of the hips to the right allows us to centre the left hip bone down the midline of the mat and allows us to get a little bit deeper into that twist. We can place that left hand on the outer thigh, but we're not pulling the leg down, it's just there as an extra little weight. So keeping the hip and knee in line, so we're not dropping the knee down here, it's nice and high. And we can take the gaze over the right fingertips, again just bringing an extra little rotation in through the upper part of the spine, right into the neck. Keeping that right shoulder grounded. And with all our twists, we want to work with a full belly breath. So I want you to really exaggerate the breath deep into the belly. And as you exhale, allowing yourself to literally melt into that space. So you should feel a little stretch into the right glute here, as well as a lovely openness through the spine into the chest. We're really wringing out those core muscles and all those organs in the abdominal cavity, giving them a little bit of space. Really nice one if you suffer from indigestion, menstrual cramps, just to create a little bit of space into that cavity. And again, feeling that lovely release through the spine. We're going to inhale back to center. Keeping that right knee hugged in, we're going to reach for our towel. And we're going to wrap it around the ball of that right foot. As we inhale, we're going to press the sole of the foot up toward the ceiling. Notice in my left leg here, there's a tendency to bend. So I want you to imagine that back of the left knee melting its way toward the ground. We're holding on with both hands, we're working our shoulder blades together, keeping that lovely openness into the chest. As we inhale, pressing the sole of the foot upward, and as we exhale, drawing those toes toward the face. So we're working into the lower leg as well as the hamstring. Notice here, I've quite a bend into my knee, okay? So I do have a tendency to suffer from quite tight hamstrings from hours of running and biking. So no matter what I do, I always seem to have that little flexion in my knee. I'm okay with it, but I do need to be careful that I don't overstretch into my hamstring, okay? So if you do have a tendency to tear your hamstring, you're recovering from a previous injury, or you just are generally quite tight, feel free to keep a little bend to the knee, because all you want to do is feel the stretch into the belly of that hamstring. So you don't want to feel it up near the knee, you don't want to feel it right down here at the sit bone, you want to feel it in that nice juicy fleshy part of the muscle that gets all the oxygen and blood flow. Because if you feel it here and here, chances are you're going to develop little tears, okay? Whereas this is where you want to feel it. Again, you don't want the muscle to be shaken, okay? So in a lot of stretches, you'll notice people start shaking into muscle. And that generally means it's fatigued and it's over contracting. So you're just contracting the muscle more. You're not actually getting any benefit of the stretch at all. So just back it off and then try to use the breath to bring yourself back into the stretch. And relax with the breath. Every exhale, you're thinking about deepening. Every inhale, connecting the spine, opening the chest. We're going to bring the grip just into the right hand, extending left arm out in line with the shoulder, palm down. And as we exhale, we're going to allow that right leg draw out to the side. We're pressing away through that right heel. We're drawing the right toes toward the face. If you find that left hip is coming off the ground, we can always place that left hand onto the hip bone to really ground it into the ground. And we want to make sure that hip is in line with the knee and ankle, so that the foot isn't right down here in the ground. It's not about getting the foot to reach the ground. We want it that it's up in line with the hip and the knee. We can maybe take our gaze over the left shoulder just to remind that side of the body to stay grounded. As we inhale, again, connecting the full length of the spine to the mat, and as we exhale, allowing that leg drop out a little bit more. So really feeling that lovely stretch into the front of the pelvis. We're working into the second muscle. There's 3 muscles in our hamstring complex, and we're working into the second one here. I'm not going to get too caught up with names and muscles. It's enough to know we're stretching into our hamstrings. We're going to inhale back to center, and we're going to bring that breath a little bit closer to the foot, taking a nice deep bend into the knee, Keeping the sole parallel to the ceiling, as we exhale, we're going to draw that right knee down toward the ground beside us. So we're coming into the little half happy baby stretch here. Again, keeping that left leg active, keeping the left knee making its way toward the ground. Whether it gets there or not, it doesn't matter. You're making that movement, making that connection with the mind and the muscle, encouraging it just that little bit more. As we inhale, we're pressing the sole of the foot up toward the ceiling, and as we exhale, we're drawing that knee outward a little bit more. So if we feel we're already quite open into that right hip, we can always get the right elbow, place it inside the knee, inside the leg, acting as an extra little prop to work a little bit more into the hip. So again, we're not getting too deep. This is still just warming up stage. Again, if you find your leg is shaking, just back off a little bit. Might feel this a little bit into the hamstring here as well. Again, you could repeat this for a lot longer than we're going to hold it. We're going to bend that left knee, bringing the left foot flat onto the ground, and we're going to draw that right ankle to rest just below the left knee, placing the tail off to the side for now. Checking in that lower back is nicely grounded onto the mat, so nice and stable. We can walk that heel toward the body. Bring a little flex into the right foot so that we're protecting that right knee joint all the time. So we're bringing the toe toward the knee. We're going to inhale, lift the left leg off the ground. Shin parallel to the ceiling, foot nice and relaxed. And then we can either interlock our hands, treading that right arm through that little triangle. And then we're going to walk those shoulder blades together. And again, if we find by grasping our hands together, we start to roll up into the upper body. Here we can take our towel, using it to make a little extension of the arms so that we can still get that space into the chest while working into the hip and glute. So you should feel this into the right hip and right into the glute muscle. Lovely little release, particularly for the cyclists, where you're hunched over and you're activating or hopefully activating those glutes for long periods of time. So just a little release into that. To make this a little bit more restorative, you could always rest this left foot up against the wall, so you're just focusing on the hips here, you're not holding the leg at all. And again, as we inhale, opening the chest, lengthening the spine. As we exhale, working that left knee toward the face, getting a little bit deeper into the hips. Again, choosing to hold this for a few extra breaths, or when you're ready, we're going to inhale, point the left foot up toward the ceiling, really stretching into the front of that foot. And as we exhale, draw those toes toward the face. So we're inhale, pointing. Exhale, draw the toes toward the face. Again, maintaining that connection of the spine onto the ground. And you'll find sometimes you find it a lot easier to flex the foot or to point the foot. So depending even on the sport that you do, you'll find the swimmers find the pointing quite easy. The cyclist might find drawing the toe toward the face a little bit easier. So depending on what position your foot maintains most of its energy or most of its movement in. We're going to make a few nice big circles to the right. And just noticing where the movement becomes a little restricted, a little bit niggly. Try to make those circles as smooth and full and slow as possible. And where you do find those restrictions in the other direction, it can be a nice little indicator as to what's going on further up the spine, up along the leg. So again, just noticing the little imbalances. So we tend to spend a lot of time on our feet, but we don't really look after them so well, self included. So again, take the time to get that little bit of mobility into the ankles. You really feel this into the lower leg here. So as well as getting mobility, it's actually a nice way of strengthening in, but in a non-load bearing way. Lovely, rest in the foot. We're going to release the foot back down onto the ground, placing the tail off to the side. We're going to cross the right leg fully over the left. That's actually a nice little glute stretch just by staying here. Or if you feel you want to come into a second twist, we're going to bring the arms out in line with the shoulders, or we can come into cactus arms. We're going to inhale, lengthen the spine, and as we exhale, shifting the hips to the right and allowing both knees drop over to the left. Again, keeping that right shoulder grounded onto the mat. Gaze goes over toward the right, so the opposite way is to where the legs are falling. And we're going to try to engage in that lovely belly breath. So really exaggerating the breath deep into the belly. And as we exhale, releasing into that space you've just created. So allow the body relax with each exhale, getting a little bit deeper into that twist, feeling that extra little stretch into the right glute. So with our spine, with our rotations, we tend to have a lot more mobility into our neck, and then it gets a little bit less into our mid-spine and a lot less in our lower back. So when we do our twists, we want to start by breathing into the lower back and working the twist from the lower to the upper. And that way we're getting full range into that rotation. Again, if you find that you're not really falling into the twist, just shift the hips a little bit more to the right. It just creates a little bit more space for those knees to fall off to the side. And then slowly, gently releasing back to center. So we're going to repeat that little sequence on both sides. So we just did the right, we're going to do it on the left. So I'm going to get you just to pause, and then you can repeat it on the left or just replay it to this section, but just do so on the left hand side. So when we finish our twist to the left, we're going to meet back in center. And then we're going to hug our knees in toward the chest. We're going to crisscross at the ankles. And then we're going to use a nice little rocking of the body forward and back along the mat. We're going to really press the full length of the spine into the mat, using that connection as a nice little massage into the back. Really opening up every single last muscle. And when you've taken 4 or 5 rock and rolls forward and back, we're going to finally engage with the core to gently draw ourselves up to seat. And we're going to begin the second part of our class.